All right, today on BRStv, it's best of 2019 filtration medias and bacterias, actually, because these things kind of go hand in hand. Today, you will see the most popular, the best in show, and then my favorite, which one?
What do we want to see for 2020?
All right, so most popular carbon as voted by you guys and what you're actually picking up, which one is it?
It's like a no contest here that the ROX 0.8 carbon is the #1 choice.
You know, there's a handful of things out there that happen to be the most expensive option and the most popular, and it's usually one that has just a super obvious value point and doesn't actually cost that much more on a monthly basis, and is definitely the ROX. So like a container like this will probably last you multiple years for most size tanks, and so like an extra $1 or $2 a month, something like that. Carbon's designed to do two things. One, remove as many impurities as possible, and in this case it's a blend of different proprietary carbons that have different pore sizes, so it removes a wide range of things efficiently. And second, it's designed for pharmaceutical intermediaries, so it also adds as little to the water as possible as well because of its intended purpose. You know, so
yeah, and I mean the small particle size here and the pore size leads itself to be fluidized, so it's made for that purpose. And we've tested carbon in a variety of different older investigates or whatnot, and one of the things that stood out was the dusty fines that are left over. So if you put carbon in a media bag and then you go rinse it out like you should, some carbons have more dusty fines that have to take a while to wash out, and some don't ever seem to wash out, and then there's some that just barely have any.
Yeah, so this rinses in seconds. I mean, literal seconds. You can see in the test. Also inside those tests, you can see as we test for small molecules, large molecules, and even medium-sized molecules with methylene blue, you can see its efficiency against other carbons. It's real obvious to see, the performance metrics. Again, it's designed specifically for water. Some of those large pellets you see out there, large granules, which can be kind of easier to use, are actually designed for air in many cases and allow channeling in fluid. This just works the best. We've seen it in the tests, and it's what all of you guys are picking up the most, so it's ROX 0.8. All right, so most popular phosphate remover of 2019, again, is voted by you guys. What is it? I
thought this one was going to be high capacity GFO,
Me too.
But it actually turned out to be the standard GFO. So with the high capacity, it can last twice as long. I can use half as much. But pound for pound, dollar-wise, I can get it done with this GFO, the standard GFO.
So just for all of you that done the math out there, this is cheaper to use, this standard stuff. The advantage of the high capacity is that it's harder, meaning I can fit twice as much in the same size container, and it doesn't create as many dusty fines as it's tumbling around there. So it has performance advantages, but dollar for dollar, if you're going to just remove phosphate from the tank, it's just a standard GFO.
Yeah, and probably why it's the most popular, but there is one that gets an honorable mention in here, and it's probably the only liquid phosphate remover that we have, and that's that Bryswell Phosphate E, which WWC says they use on their tanks.
Yeah, this one hit my radar like in the last couple of years. I think it's based on lithium chloride, and one of the cool things that the WWC team shared with us is, like with GFO, you just kind of end up stripping all of it out, and then you wait for it to get depleted, and then the phosphate levels will start to rise, and then you change it out and whatnot. With this one, because you're precipitating it out using the lithium chloride, what you can actually do is dose a specific amount.
Yeah.
Right? So I dose X amount of milliliters, and it reduces in my tank size, the phosphate from 0.1 to 0.05 or whatever. And in that case, you can really take the dose and keep your phosphate at a specific level if you want.
Yeah, a little more controlled than throwing a half a cup or quarter cup of GFO in a reactor. I know what this is going to do, as it tells me.
Yeah, I haven't weighed it out as a phosphate removal per penny, but I said expectations, this is probably a little bit more expensive, but also, a little bit more precise in why the WWC team is doing it. They're not trying to maintain zero. They're just trying to keep it under a specific level. And so, honorable mention here, this is actually sold like way more bottles than I had anticipated.
Yep.
All right, so most popular biomedia of 2019, which one is it?
Yeah, this is that ceramic media, that highly porous type of media that you put in your tanks to, house some beneficial bacteria and whatnot. And when it comes in plates, bricks, balls, cubes, and gems, it's the marine pier. So
it is absolutely this one. So we've been using this one for a really long time. I will say that I personally really like using the balls and stuff, so because it makes water easier to channel through around and get to the outer surface area. There might be some denitrification. We didn't see it in a lot of tests that we've done here, but it might still happen, and it's probably only going to happen like after the first quarter or 3/8 of an inch, so you don't really have to have real thick material for it to work. And so I like the balls. I like the plates. A lot of people take the plates and you slide them in between the baffles, make sure you don't clog it or whatnot.
Yeah.
But you can also slice this stuff.
Yeah, this stuff is really malleable in that, so I have this one plate and maybe that doesn't fit in my chamber, in between my baffles or, in these certain places. It's super easy to cut through this stuff and shape it to what you desire, so.
I've used a hacksaw in the past,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty certain you could use a butter knife.
Yeah, probably.
Right? You can really shape up the blocks or the plates into whatever shape you'd like. These are probably getting even more popular as people are going bare bottom with a lot of different tank styles out there, where I want to make sure that I have some type of increased amount of biofiltration in the tank. And so you put it in high flow areas of the tank, not where water's pounding it or it may fall apart, but where water's flowing around it and through it.
Up next is the most popular biomedia bacteria. These are like starter bacterias and things like that. And we have one clear winner.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I was actually surprised that it is the Microbacter 7, by double. I actually I didn't believe it was actually going to win, much less by double. But this is what you guys are picking up by double over every other option. And, there's a couple of things about it that actually I think probably make it why it's so popular. The 7 signifies 7 different strains of bacteria that are in there, right? And there's both autotrophic and heterotrophic bacteria. The autotrophic getting the energy from processing the ammonia, nitrite, and whatnot in the tank. The heterotrophic are like those predators that clean your tank, right?
Yeah.
So they consume like organic carbon and stuff in the tank and go searching. So they're also in a like cystid form, so they can travel a lot better. So they can, handle heat and cold and whatnot. So in a world where we're all shipping stuff, this is a much better option than many options like the live options in most cases.
Right.
So probably because it ships better, probably also because it doesn't just approach getting rid of ammonia and nitrite and whatnot in the tank. It actually gets the tank ready by going and adding those heterotrophic bacteria that will actually keep all the malm and even some of the algae and stuff at bay inside the tank, and just gets it ready for you to start. So this is the kind of stuff that people will add in a new tank, and actually people will dose it over time to their tank to keep some of that malm and all the surfaces of the rock clean.
Yeah.
So there you go. As voted by you guys as a bacterial additive for starting up a tank, and in pairing with some of the medias here, Microbacter 7. All right, so most popular of the cleaning bacteria, again, voted by you guys, which one is it?
Yeah, we have a handful of these different types of cleaning bacteria supplements, and we've only had this one a few months, but 2 times as much as everybody else, the Vibrant.
We've been talking about it a lot, so I guess I'm not surprised in that case, but I'm actually surprised about the results. So I was a little cautious about some of the cleaning bacteria because I didn't understand exactly how they all work. But there's a handful of them out there. There's a Vibrant, there's a Microbacter Clean, there's a Dr. Tim's Waste Away, the Zeovit Biomate, and they're all designed to help keep the tank clean, right? And so if you don't really understand how it all works, again, this is those heterotrophic bacteria that go and eat all the excess waste and sometimes actual algae. In this case, this tank had a whole bunch of bubble algae all over it. If you watched our Facebook Lives and stuff, you'd see them. Wiped it out. I've never seen anything. The Vibrant totally wiped out all of the bubble algae. Tank's doing awesome. And I've never, ever seen anything other than like a predator that eats it, just eliminate it from the tank.
Well, and on top of that, if you guys were watching some of the UV testing that we've done, you guys watched these tanks grow over like a month or 2 and just explode in algae. And then we decided, hey, let's try Vibrant on these tanks before we shut this down and see if it's doing anything. And some of the most recent updates, like on the Facebook Lives that you've been doing, and probably in the future episode too, you can see this Vibrant at work at some of these ulvas, some of these hair algae, and just breaking them down, turning them white, and then we just remove them by hand out of the aquarium.
It's absolutely astounding.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything quite like it. And so this is absolutely the number one, again, like it's the number one by a lot. And we've only been in here for a few months. So if you actually extrapolate that over the year, if it was in here the whole year, I'm pretty certain it'd be like 5-6-fold the number one.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for what everybody else is picking up for that type of purpose, it is definitely the Vibrant. All right, so most popular CO2 media of 2019, which one is it?
Yeah, we brought this one on because of some testing we did on the BRS 160 where we used a CO2 scrubber, increased the pH in the tank, and absolutely saw higher calcification, more calcium and alkalinity consumption, which is expected if you run a higher pH. And so we brought in a bunch of this stuff and made it cheap and easy for everybody to get, packaged it ourselves, so it's the BRS CO2 media. It comes in the 1.2 and the 7-pound packages.
Yeah, so there's other brands out there. I'll just say, because we bring it in bulk, I don't think ours is any better or worse than anybody else's. It's all kind of the same thing. So the cheapest option is usually the option that wins in that case. And not surprising, it's the BRS bulk one. So there you are.
All right, up next is the most popular calcium reactor media of 2019 that you guys are putting in your calcium reactors at home, and we have...
It's the Two Little Fishes reborn here. I guess not surprised. What does it look like? I
mean, this is absolutely bits of skeleton, coral skeleton. So is there something inherent about like I'm feeding corals with corals? It feels like it's the natural way to do this. But even in our testing, so I did testing on calcium reactor medias in the different types, and this one actually comes out as the highest saturation at some of those common pH set points in your calcium reactor, some upwards of like 15% in some cases. So more concentration over those limestone ones, but I'm looking at little coral skeleton bits.
Yeah, no question. The idea of melting old coral skeleton to grow new coral skeleton makes a ton of sense. But also, even within that is we did some ICP testing on the effluent. We saw higher levels of strontium than some of the other ones that look like gravel. And so, I don't know, Julian and Two Little Fish has been around forever, specifically this media, so I guess I'm not real surprised that this is the most popular one that you guys are picking up. So that is the most popular 2019 and probably quite a few years before that.
Yeah.
All right, so the biopellet that you guys have made the most popular in 2019, which one is it?
Yeah, for those of you guys using carbon dosing biopellets for carbon dosing and putting in your reactors, it's the BRS biopellets in bulk. So we have a few different packaging sizes, and in this case, the lowest cost option by volume probably also wins as the most popular, and it's the BRS biopellets.
Yeah, so not surprising, most of the biopellets come from the same place. And it's actually really interesting. It's actually made by a bacteria. So bacteria actually takes up all of the available excess carbon and produces those so that in your tank you can add carbon back in and it will utilize the carbon there. So this is the most popular, and I'm pretty certain it's just because it's offered in bulk and inexpensive. But most popular is voted by you guys. It is the BRS biopellet. And not surprising again, I mean, you're seeing a theme here. Filtration media is what we do. We buy this stuff in bulk, and we offer it to you guys in a good value. So it's not surprising you see it on a variety of fronts here.
All right, so best in show 2019 for filtration medias and bacterial medias is, I'm going to vote with you guys on the most popular. I'm using all of these.
I think every last one of them here is probably the most popular for a reason. These are not like a protein skimmer or a calcium reactor where there's a lot of stuff in there to move and decide which one's right for you. The best performing at the most affordable price is really easy. The only thing that I will say is honorable mention, I got two of them, is the Brightwell bricks here. And I'll just say that this stuff is real similar, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
So like it holds up under water flow much better than some of the competition. It's just a lot harder material. It doesn't crumble or anything. I like the little dimples so you can stack them and get water that goes through them.
True.
My only request though is if they had like the ball shape and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
So, but like I really like these. We used them in the XXL 750 for the first time, and now you see them all over the lab.
Yep,
right?
we use them in all of our testing tanks when we need filtration, like right off the bat.
Yeah, one of the tanks actually is the flow tank experiment we did, which has like 130 some corals in it that all got dumped into a bare bottom tank with just one of these guys in it.
Yeah.
And you can see all the corals. Hopefully you guys will get a little shot of this you can share with everybody here. But like, dude, all of them, 0 mortalities in the hardest possible environment, and just filtered by one of these guys in the bottom. I think pretty incredible. So I really like it. Just it's really hard, and that's one thing. The only other one that I'll hold out for also is the Eheim GFO. And I'm not going to say it's better than anything else, but for some of you, there's a unique thing out there. It's just much bigger pellets. So hopefully we'll get a shot of that as well that you can share. But for those of you looking for a bigger pellet that has water that can flow around it, probably doesn't work as cost effectively or as efficiently, but it may work in an environment where I just want to throw it in a bag a little better and let water flow through it instead of trying to tumble it or whatnot. So honorable mention for both of those two. All right, my favorite part of all of these is always what we'd like to see for 2020. And actually, I want to see like what actually materializes in 2020 because we've done like a dozen of these videos.
Yeah.
And like, I wonder really how much of this is going to materialize if we can do a little prodding. So what's the first one?
Oh, well, one of our hopefuls for making things improvements and for the next year has been Brightwell. And like you had alluded to just a minute ago, we want to see these in the ball shape. So they have some cubes in different forms and factors, the export phosphate type cubes and stuff. They have the bricks. But let's take these dimples and round them out and then package them individually.
Yeah, maybe even thinner bricks that are designed to be like stacked, or plates with the little balls on the bottom. They're designed to get water through and around them. I think would be a really cool addition to that kind of product line.
Yeah.
Also, we'd like a little clearer direction from some of those cleaning bacteria, like the Biomate from KZ, the Vibrant, the Waste Away from Dr. Tim, and the Microbacter Clean from Brightwell. Like all of those, I just don't think people realize like what they're doing or how they work, and so a little closer like directions on how to do it. Maybe like they could do some of their own, before and after tests and share them with the universe. Maybe we could do it. We got some plans for some of that stuff. So like I'd like to see that for 2020 is get a little bit more information because they're really awesome tools, and we just need to learn how to use them better and make sure the results get better as well.
Yeah, and tied to that, like you just said, some testing. So let's get some testing done, and maybe this is a BRStv Investigate. So maybe we're challenging ourselves for next year in 2020, and we're kind of doing this to some degree in the lab as we speak right now. But let's get some definitive or more defined results for how this stuff works.
I agree. And one of the things I would really like to see for 2020 is an affordable calcium reactor media that's synthetic. Meaning they have precipitated out calcium and carbonate ions from pure sources, and I'm willing to give up all the trace elements and stuff because along with the trace elements, you also get phosphate and other things in there. So
yeah, and in the calcium reactor media testing that I was doing, and when we did the ICP test, there's absolutely phosphates in all of these calcium reactor media types. So if we could remove that from adding into our tank and just get a synthetic blend, even better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to challenge somebody out there. There are like some synthetic blends out on the market, especially in Europe and whatnot, but they're super duper expensive. So like they don't need to be expensive. So I challenge somebody to bring those out to market. Somebody should bring in a synthetic calcium reactor media. And the last one that I would actually like to see for 2020 is, I think we could do this actually, is get a calculator for phosphate E. What size my tank is, how much phosphate I have in there, how much I dose, and where it will land me. That is the pitch at least that's been shared with us. It's that easy. So let's get a calculator together, and maybe the Brightwell team and the BRS team can work together to get something out there that at least gets you close, so you know how much to dose and what it does. All right, so if you'd like to see more information on all of this, you can see all of it over at the filtration category of the website. So click on over, and we'll see you next week.